Hey everybody, welcome to Parenting for a Peaceful Home. I am your host, Christina Louise, and today I am thrilled to be able to introduce you to a new friend of mine. Her name is Anna Seewald. She is a psychologist and a parent educator, and today she's going to help us stop yelling and establish more peace without harsh punishments or doing anything that doesn't feel good to you as a mom, but still have peace and unity in our homes. Welcome, Anna. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
You're so welcome. I'm really excited to dive into this topic for you because, as you knew, when I was growing up, my parents used harsh punishments and spanking to get me into line. And for me, it really hurt me and made me, I think, worse off than they were trying to in the first place. But I also understand that parents just don't know what else to do, and we're all taught by our culture that if we spoil, what is that saying? Spare the rod, spoil the child. So again, I'm just really excited to dive in this topic with you because I don't know a better way. What do you have to say to parents who are in this situation now?
Yes, I would love to start off by saying that at any given time, parents, people, human beings, children, we all behave at our best capacity, at our best ability, with knowledge, skills, information, resources, and support we have. No human being, no child, no parent gets up and says, you know what, I know better, I know all the research, I know what's the right thing, but I'm gonna mess up anyways. Nobody does that. So it's not about blaming parents, shaming parents, judging parents, saying you're doing this, oh, you're a bad parent. It's not about calling names. It's about pointing at parents. It's about raising awareness, sharing knowledge, what's available in the research, in the past 50 years, what we know in the field of psychology. It's about teaching parents new ways, giving them tools, knowledge, and making them feel good about themselves and switch to different way of parenting. It's not about, oh, you're doing it wrong. Okay. It's not about that. And research is clear. Research is available. Education is available. And fortunately, there is a movement right now, this whole parenting movement, a paradigm shift is happening, especially you're part of it too. You're organizing this great summit, bringing together all these wonderful people from around the world. And that's a gift because many years ago, our parents did not have access to that kind of rich resource. Now we do. And parents are shifting, parenting is shifting. We live in exciting times. I am excited to be part of it as I am very passionate about helping children thrive. As I have worked for many years, nearly 20 years, I have worked with children. That's how I started my work. I worked with juvenile delinquents, beggars, street children, youth at risk, children with disabilities. And when I became a parent 9 years ago, it was then that I realized it's not the children, it's the parents who need help and support. How can poor parents do their best? We're still parenting the way our parents parented, our grandparents parented. We need to change that. So I dedicated myself in creating programs, developing frameworks, doing workshops and one-on-one work with parents. And I am so blessed and I'm happy to be part of it. And I grew myself as a result. I'm learning from the parents I work with. I'm making a difference in their life. They're making a difference in mine. But we do need to move from traditional way of parenting, the punishments, the rewards, into more conscious, gentle, peaceful way of parenting. That's imperative, I think, especially now, what we know in the field of psychology, human development, and neuroscience. It's a shame not to use that.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about this research. What is psychology over the last 50 years or neuroscience over the last 20 years? Tell us about spanking, punishment, rewards, that kind of thing.
Well, the first thing I would bring attention to is punishment. I mean, what's the purpose of punishment, really, right? First, we need to think about this. Why do children misbehave, right? Children, for me, I don't use the word misbehavior, because for me, there's only behavior that exists, because it starts with the way we think about things. If you think that your child is misbehaving, then you're still trapped in that old mindset, and you want to do something to stop the behavior, to correct the behavior, to control from outside, which is impossible, right? It's manipulative, it's controlling. And punishments are, it's a top-down approach. We want to inflict some kind of psychological, emotional, or physical pain to make our children obey, listen, conform, and do the things we want them to do, with the hopes of them not repeating the bad behavior in the future, which obviously we know is not true. Children who are being hit, spanked, or punished, they're not like thinking to themselves, this was good, my mom taught me a good lesson, or my dad, I'm not going to do this thing again. They may, because of fear, and that's one of the major things I speak to is, do you want to raise children who fear you? Because yes, you can. Fear is a big motivator. With my size, with my power, I can make any child to do anything I want. But do I really want that kind of relationship with my child? Fear-based parenting? No, because we very well know what fear does to your brain, to your well-being. You know, children who feel threatened, they shut down. Human beings, you know, our nervous system, the way it's designed, our brain responds to fear by going into fight, flight, or shutdown mode. And when children are in that stress response mode, they're unable to learn. And it's just counterproductive. We're trying to teach them something, but they're not learning, because the part of the brain that is responsible for paying attention, being focused, learning, reasoning, shuts down when the fear system gets activated in a child. So we really don't want to use fear-based techniques. And punishment is a large word, right? It's a spectrum. What do we consider a punishment? So punishment could be harsh spanking on one end, and on the other extreme, it could be yelling, verbal abuse, withholding rewards, grounding, timeouts, and it's a wide range of things we consider punishment. Punishment basically is you are doing something to the child, causing unpleasantness or some kind of pain, with the hopes of for that child not repeating that behavior, which we know is ineffective and it doesn't work. Whereas discipline it means to teach, right? The root for the word discipline means to teach. And when we use true discipline, we teach our children the lessons that they need to learn. If you use your power as a parent, your force, your size, your harsh language, hitting, spanking, whatever it is, you're teaching them a lesson, definitely, for sure, that whoever is bigger, stronger, more powerful has a say. This is how we solve conflicts, problems. That's the lesson that they're learning, and that's not the lesson we want to teach them. Because what do children really do when they misbehave? They don't listen. What are the common misbehaviors in our society? We need to look deeper at the behavior. What are the root causes of behavior? Why is my child behaving this way, not misbehaving? And once we understand that it all comes down to either they lack information, or they lack skills, they're overstimulated or understimulated, they have lots of pent-up emotions, or they have emotional needs that are not met. Once we look at those factors, the misbehavior disappears simply. And we can pick an example here, and I would be happy to, talk about a specific scenario if you have something in mind. But discipline is respectful, punishment is disrespectful. And, you know, we can talk about the difference between discipline and punishment. You know, I'm happy to answer whatever follow-up questions you may have.
Yeah, so I think what I'm hearing you say is that when we use our yelling, when we use punishment, when we use spanking, then we're teaching a lesson, but the lesson that we're teaching is whoever is bigger and stronger wins, and this is how we get what we want. And that makes a lot of sense to me, because when I was growing up as a child and I was being physically punished by my parents, and what I call abuse now, like they didn't think that they were abusing me. They thought that they were doing what the Bible told them to do, what their friends were telling them to do. They thought that they were helping me. But from my point of view, I was being violently assaulted on a daily basis for things that I didn't even realize that I was doing wrong. Because I, like you said, was not waking up in the morning deciding, you know what, I want to screw around with my parents' life and make them late. Or, you know what, sounds like fun, I'll beat up on my brother. And that's not what's going through a child's mind. And I absolutely agree with you on that, because I lived that. And what I did learn was the lessons that you said I would learn, which was whoever's the biggest and the strongest wins. So because I was being abused, I grew up to bully my brother. I grew up to bully and use my physical self to intimidate and to, you know, scare other people off. So I absolutely agree with what you're saying. Where I am falling short on is, well, what's the difference between discipline and punishment? If we're not going to use punishment, let's talk about what is discipline and how does that work?
We'll talk about that, but I also want to add to that that children who are punished frequently, you know, they become more aggressive. It's a research finding, and it's not just me saying. You know, children become more aggressive. They become violent. It increases the likelihood of them engaging in criminal activity in their later, you know, either teenage years or adult years. It also increases the likelihood of them being victims of abuse, because if you take abuse from your parents, that's all you know, that's your programming, that's your pattern. And sadly enough, you know, you seek that kind of ill patterns later in other relationships in your life. You become an easy target, easy victim. Also, it increases the likelihood of delinquent activities. You know, increases the risk for mental illness. I mean, we know these are research findings. We cannot ignore that. It breaks the relationship between parent and child. I'm so sorry about that. You know, this is a very emotional topic. It's an emotional topic for me because I worked in a correctional facility for many years. I saw children being victimized, abused, hit in the institution, and I stood up for their rights. I fought like hell because no child needs to be hurt in this day and age for the things that they do, because simply they don't know. Simply they lack information, or they don't have the skills or the capacity. Simply they have a need for connection and they just don't know how to say, Mommy, I just want to spend time with you. Or they have a need for autonomy. They don't know how to express that. But it's not about blaming parents again. Parents who abused or hit or still using punishment, they don't know any better. You know, they are traumatized people. They need help. They need support. It's not like I said, they want to screw up their kids. No, they don't. They feel guilty. They feel bad when they do that to their children. It doesn't sit well with them as well. It's not like they're so happy, oh, I'm doing this. No, they're traumatized people. That's why we need to shed light to this topic and wake up finally and help parents to shift. It's very important. It breaks the child between parent and child. The trust is just shattered and ruined. The child's sense of safety, belonging is shattered. And the very person who is supposed to protect and love you is hurting you. What are you learning? You know, what kind of lesson is that? It's a fucked up lesson. I'm sorry to use foul language, but parents need to support, help, nourish their children. If they are the very source of hurt, then it's very disorienting for the child. A child is growing up with a broken sense of self, not knowing who she is, being disconnected from her own self. Talking about finding your true authentic self, this is my work is all about, because people who have had this misfortune of growing up in this kind of environments, they don't know, they can't find themselves. They have a distorted view of their own self. They don't know who they are. Because when parents hurt children, what do children deduce? I am not welcomed. I am not loved. I am not accepted. I am a bad person. They grow up with a sense of guilt and shame, and they have limiting beliefs. And that's not a way of raising kids who are going to make a difference in the world and be happy human beings. But let me tell you, Christina, I work with parents from all walks of life. A big part of my work is teaching court-ordered parenting classes. And this is the people who are drug addicts. They just came out of prison. They go in and out of prison. So I work with that clientele. And what I can tell you is I've never met a single parent in my 20-year career who doesn't love their child. Even the junkie who is on the streets, who is homeless, they just happen to have a child. Every parent loves their child. No doubt, absolutely about that. But love is not enough to be a good parent, not even a great parent. It's not enough. You need other stuff. It's not a question if you're loving your child or you're not. It's not about that. So when we talk about, you asked me, what's the difference? This is a very emotional topic for me too. And yes, and I'm very passionate.
Yes, and I can see that, and that's exactly why we're here together. And I'm so grateful that we're talking about this. And I just want to explain to the audience members like where these tears are coming from. And it just, everything that this woman is telling you is absolutely for sure a fucking fact. Like, she is reiterating my entire life for you right now as a child who was punished by parents who loved me. They loved me. They believed that they were doing me a favor. They believed that they were helping me. And I'm telling you, everything, putting up with abuse from boyfriends, I put up with verbal abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse during my 20s, because I figured, well, if my mom treated me that way, if my dad treated me that way, what's the difference if somebody else? It wasn't a conscious choice. It's just what I was used to. When she talks about having a low self-esteem and a low self-worth and being a bully and being intimidating to others and not having a sense of self or a sense of belonging and feeling like you don't fit in and there's something wrong with you. This is what's happening to your children every time you put your hands on them and every time you talk negatively to them. And that's why I'm crying, because it's true. And I'm so grateful that I get to share this with you in a loving, compassionate way and to present you with an opportunity to learn how to do it differently so that your kids don't have to deal with what I dealt with growing up. And I want you to forgive yourself if you are doing this today or you did it yesterday or last week with your children, to forgive yourself, please, because you beating yourself up and you punishing yourself is not going to make this any better. So please, Anna, please show us how we can treat our children with respect and with love and teach them the lessons that we are intending to teach them.
Again, to go back to the parents who are using punishments, and and they may be in denial. They may say, oh, I grew up with punishment, I'm doing this. These are lies they're telling themselves, right? We all know that. But what blocks the flow of love towards your child when you're treating, that's the trauma, that's the underlying trauma you carry. So this is why it's important to do self-development, some kind of healing work, some kind of therapy. Because when a parent doesn't have a strong sense of self, who am I in this world, my values, my beliefs, when that sense of self is disconnected, distorted, broken, hidden, sleeping, because of the upbringing, and now that person is a parent, it becomes 100 times harder to parent your growing child who is trying to be herself, pure, innocent. And when you don't have a formed sense of self, like your authentic self is not there, but your child's is, it's hard to parent. It's hard to parent because that's the first step in doing this conscious, mindful, gentle parenting is to do work on yourself, to really find who you are, to get rid of the limiting beliefs, to do the healing work, to gain, in order to gain confidence. You cannot parent with your old programming, with your old patterns. You need to break free from that. You need to know who you are. This is this part of my work, because our children are already their authentic self. Yeah. When I watch my daughter happily grow, she's so like in tune with life, in tune with herself, and just, you know, lovely. And when I have shortcomings or limitations or certain beliefs, I impose on her, and that's where the conflict rises. Because right. You know, we need to do that work. So it starts by learning how to be self-compassionate. It starts by learning how to love and forgive ourselves. It starts by being self-accepting with all our flaws in order to accept another human being. Yeah. Look, before we became parents, right? All of us, we had all our emotional baggage. We had the trauma history, we had our patterns, we had our ill limiting beliefs. We did have that. And it did affect our life, not in great intensity or great depth, but once we become parents, it just intensifies. And parenting is a great opportunity for self-healing, self-work, inner work, because we did have that baggage before. Now it's time to just wake up and say, you know what? I have to look at my stuff and heal in order to be a great parent. Once you conquer that first step, or at least move into that step, then you will be able to parent your child with dignity, with respect, with trust, because you can't give what you didn't receive, right? If you grew up in a household where you were not accepted, you don't know how acceptance feels. When you don't have a, you know, you were not respected, your dignity was just harassed all the time. You can't give that to your child. It's going to anger you when your child steps up and say, Mom, don't talk to me like that. I'm a human being. You're going to say, how dare you? So you're going to fall into your ill programming again. So that first step is very important.
Can we pause right there? Because I want to just highlight what you're saying. So I think the really important part to understand for everybody here is that when you were born, when your child was born, when a human being is born, they are born their authentic self. They are born innocent. They are born loved. They are born deserving, and they know it. They're born perfect, right? But we're born into this world, and we're put into the hands of parents who have forgotten themselves, right? Who have their own emotional baggage, and then they start packing it on to us, right? Remember how your parents talked to you when you were a kid? Most people's parents talk to them like, be a bad boy, don't be a bad boy, don't be a good bad, you better be good, or Santa Claus isn't gonna come, right? And they instill in us, this world instills in us this fear that we're not loved and we're not wanted and we're not good enough, and there's this potential for us to screw it all up, and that we're not perfect, and that they know better than what our own hearts are saying to us. And we have to buy into that, right? We have to, in order to survive and receive love from our authority figures growing up. You got to kind of buy in and believe the crap that they're feeding you. Unconsciously, all right? This is not about hating on anybody. They're unconsciously heaping this fear and this not good enough onto you. So now you grow up and you've been through all this trauma, and you've been through not getting picked for a team, and mom not showing up for your dance recital, or worse, maybe you've gone through worse than that. Either way, it's trauma. And now you give birth to your child, and you're filled with all of this love, but at the same time, you still got all of this fear and this anger and this disappointment from your own past. And then your little kid, who's born perfect, natural and authentic, comes up to you and is like, hey, look at me, I'm so awesome, buy me stuff, look at me. And you're just like, who do you think you are? And you don't mean to do that, but you can't help it because you're dealing with your own trauma and it's being triggered by your kid. And that's why it looks like you've got to change your kid. No, I've got to change me. No, it's her. No, it's me. And this is the conflict going on in so many homes. And this is what we're here to help you with. And I hope that that made sense.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it all comes down to having emotional needs, right? In my work, I identify 6 needs, and children want to feel important. We all do. We all have needs, right? We have physical needs and we have emotional needs. Physical needs are very easy for parents to identify. Your child didn't sleep enough. Okay, maybe that's why she's behaving this way. Your child didn't eat enough food. She's hungry. She's cranky. Your child needs to use the bathroom and, they're a little hyper. Your child is cold or hot. Heat increases aggressiveness. They are a little, off track. So parents are easy to identify the physical needs. However, the emotional needs are what's important here. Acceptance. How do you show acceptance to your child? How do you show connection? How do you show respect? How do you show, that your child belongs here? Sense of importance, right?
Yeah.
Those are important things. You may love your child, but does your child feel loved, right? It's a different notion. You can ask your children, how do you know that mommy loves you? What are the things that I do that makes you feel loved? The answer will surprise you, absolutely. When children's needs are not met, the emotional needs, they will do everything to get heard. They will do things for you to notice them and meet their needs. And having needs is not a bad thing. We all have needs. And as adults, we also are not in tune with our own needs, deep needs. I have a neighbor who really wants her husband to feel like emotional support. She needs emotional support from her husband, but it's too vulnerable to come out and say, hey, honey, I feel lonely. This parenting thing I'm doing by myself, you work long hours, I need your emotional support. When you buy groceries, when you drop the kids at the ballet class, that's good, but that's not enough support for me. So parents need to know what their needs are in order to identify their children too. Sometimes when I ask parents, what are your needs? They're like, I don't know. I've forgotten my needs. But when you speak from your needs, then it's a lot easier to get your needs met. So children are not going to come out and say, mommy, my autonomy need is very low. It's been, I was in school the whole day. I was ought to follow directions. I was ought to sit in a circle. I didn't want to do. I followed through many rules and instructions, and I'm home now, and I just want to be rambunctious, or I want to have some autonomy. I want to have some say. I want to choose something. So they will push our buttons to get their needs met. And we need to become detectives of their behavior and just read the signs. What is this behavior telling me? Look underneath, because it's once we interpret their behavior and meet the need, let's say it's an unmet need, your child goes to school and then comes home, then you go to a dance class or some sporting activity. You don't spend enough one-on-one time. Their connection need is low. Then you come home, eat dinner quickly, bedtime routine, and go to bed. Children crave that connection with you. And are they guilty for wanting to feel deep, meaningful connection with you, emotional? No, of course not. But are your needs met? No. Well, when you're running on empty, you're not going to give your children what they need. So it again comes down to us, right? See, the funny part is, let's take any misbehavior and talk about how we can use discipline, what discipline is. So for parents to know from real life examples. Maybe you can give me an example, or I can bring something up from my life with my daughter, which is, hundreds of examples.
And I know that the free gift that you're going to give the parents watching today goes over this in more detail, but let's just play with one
Yes.
example before we have to wrap for now.
Yeah.
Let's see. So let's say the kid, you're trying to make dinner and the kid is like, hello, hello, what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And what about that? And what are you doing? And why are you doing it? And yeah, like what? And you're like, please stop. I'm trying to cook. It's very hot on the stove. I don't want you to get hurt, right? I don't want to burn this food, but the kid will not relax and go away. What can we do in that instance?
Well, that's a very simple example, right? In this case, I don't know. It depends on the age of the child. We're speaking about the young child in this case. It's about getting some attention, some connection, perhaps. Or maybe if you cannot give attention in that moment, you can set a boundary, or you can give that attention in the beginning. If that's a repeated behavior, you expect that at dinner time your child is going to do that kind of neediness, then maybe you can invite them to help you to cook together, or be there in the kitchen with you. You can communicate. They're drawing or doing their, some kind of project, or you can connect before dinner for 5 minutes, not long. You can sit on the couch together, talk to one another, look into each other's eyes, be curious about one another. You can do, connection doesn't have to be, you have to do some kind of extravagant act, just checking in with your child one-on-one without any distraction or a phone before you cook dinner, because they're going to be needy. And when the time is there, your child comes again and distracts you, you don't have to be harsh. You don't have to be in the role of a parent, like, I'm cooking dinner. When you're stressed, your voice comes out like that. You're like, I'm cooking dinner. We're going to be hungry. Daddy is going to come home. And you are, alarmed and stressed out. So it comes across like that. But your child actually will push your buttons more and more, because they want to test to see if they can make you happy and cheerful. They don't like that harshness. So maybe you can be playful in that moment. Maybe you can set a boundary. With a younger child, you can be playful. With a slightly older kid, like 5, 6, 7, you can set a boundary. You can say, sweetheart, in 10 minutes after this cooks, I'll put this in the oven and we're going to play together. You can give them a sign like that. There's different things you can do in that moment, but I think that's a simple example. But we need to be in tune with our children, what they're doing. If another example would be, if your child is touching something all the time and it's breakable, or it's dangerous, or it's sharp, or it's hot, or whatever, what do you parents say normally? Stop that, don't touch that, okay? But that doesn't mean the child learned the lesson, right? The child is gonna be curious and come and touch and more. Stop that doesn't tell them anything. I mean, you can give them if it's a younger child, you can distract, or you can make your environment child friendly, or you can remove that item from there, or you can be curious together, or there's multiple things you can do again. But stop that is not going to teach the lesson. Always remember, when it comes to discipline, why is your child behaving that way? The root cause. What lesson are you going to teach in that moment? And how are you going to teach that lesson? That's all there is to discipline. Those are the 3 questions when it comes to discipline. What am I trying to teach, and how am I going to teach that lesson? If I yell and scream, if my daughter didn't clean her room and it's messy, and I asked her to do that, and I go and it's messy again, if I increase the harshness of my tone, or yell, or use some kind of punishment, I'm not going to teach the very lesson. Clean, organized room it's just counterproductive, and it's ineffective. We can collaborate together. I can ask better questions. I can describe the situation. I can say, I noticed that your room is still, your toys are all over the place. Are you still using your Legos? They're still on the floor. Give them, in some cases, you need to let go of things, right? Not everything has to be controlled and organized according to your rules, according to your agenda. I say that to parents. I was having lunch yesterday with a friend and her 5-year-old son. Perfect example. His food came in, pasta with meatballs. They gave him a little bit of cheese on the side, and he went on to put cheese on her pasta. The mother goes, well, that's too much, honey. Hold it like this. No, 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 no. Why, right? Why control that little moment? Let him pour too much. Let him discover, oh, this was too much. Maybe next time he can control how much to put. It's his cheese. Give your children a little bit of breathing space. You know, too much control is stifling to children. I mean, when parents control their children, they lose their influence. Simple as that. You can ask better questions. Are you sure you want cheese with that much cheese on your pasta? That looks like a whole lot of cheese. Oh my gosh. You know, you can be funny, you can lighten up the mood, but I think we need to look, and including myself. I'm not a perfect parent by all means, to look at our patterns of control, because when we control things, we feel good about ourselves. And children are so easy to control, right? Then the larger problems in our lives, it gives us a sense of satisfaction. I am in charge of this, at least in charge of this parenting game. But it's not about that. It's about raising capable, responsible human beings. Yeah. Let them mess up now a few times. What's the larger, bigger picture, larger lesson you're trying to teach? You know, she may not clean her room every day now, but she may know how to clean. That's the key here. And again, it comes down to expectations, what expectations you have from your kids, their age, their development. Can a 2-year-old clean their room? Hell no. Can a 5-year-old clean their room? No. Be reasonable. You know, we need to be aware of their development too before we make requests. And when they don't listen to us, we fly off the handle and create additional layers of issues. I think, again, a lot comes down to being informed, educated,
and whole. And that's what I really want to, it's like, we can tell you, we can give you these strategies and like, oh, don't, you know, as a parent, you can ask this question or you can do it this way. But that all comes about naturally when you do your own inner work. Wouldn't you agree, Anna? Like when you do your own inner work and you release, you forgive the people who tried to control you or hurt you or disappointed you, and then you become more compassionate and gentle and you start feeling more safe as an individual, it's so much easier to naturally just show up asking questions with your children, naturally show up being playful. The solutions come from you naturally. People like Anna, who is a parenting expert and an educator and a psychologist, can give you these, you know, do this, you know, instead of that. But at the end of the day, she's just a guide. And at the end of the day, you're a human being and you know your children and you know the way that you want to parent. You've been encoded for this job. So I just want to highlight a couple of things that you said here, which is discipline is about asking those 3 questions. And are those 3 questions in your free gift as well, in that PDF that you have for us?
So I have two gifts for our parents. One is I printed, you guys are going to get the color version of this, discipline versus punishment. You can see it lists, you know, state of your relationship, form, everything. What's the difference between discipline and punishment? You can print this and put it on your refrigerator as a good visual reminder. And I have a guide printed for myself, but it's 15 reasons why spanking is wrong. But this is not only about spanking. This is about punishment in general. So this is a bit of a, you know, it's a guide. So your viewers will get both of this. Yes.
So all you have to do to grab those 2 free gifts from Anna is to click the link below this video and enter your email address and she'll send that off to you. But I really love what you said. When you use control, you lose influence.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yes.
That's important.
Yes.
So in closing, what do you want to say to the parents who are watching today?
Oh, I just want to say, don't be hard on yourself. Know that you are doing a very important job. Parenting is an emotional job. It's not easy. It's not easy for me. It may sound that it's easy, but it's not. I've faced the same challenges. Give yourself some compassion, credit for the hard work of parenting that you are doing. Seek help. I mean, the help is available. I have a weekly podcast. I would love to direct their attention to that. It's a show about personal growth in the context of parenting. We talk about the stuff, compassion, empathy, mindfulness, how to heal from our traumas, how to be trauma informed, and all of that. It's free. You just subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. If they don't know how to listen to a podcast,
I'll put it in the email. So
Yeah.
it'll be in the email. It's in the email now for you all watching.
Yes.
Her link to her podcast on iTunes and the link to the free gift as well.
That would be helpful. And just give yourself credit, people, for the hard work of parenting. Don't be hard on yourself. Don't compare yourself to other people. Try to do a little bit of reflection today, who you are, what your roots are. Maybe journal about your past, your present, and think about the question, how do you want your children to remember you? How do you want to be remembered by your children? And keep your gaze at the larger picture of parenting. The daily minutia, they're not getting into a car seat, or they spilled orange juice on the floor. Forget that. What's the larger picture of parenting? That keep your eyes at your goals, and don't be so hard on yourself. Everybody makes mistakes. It's not about that. It's about progress and process, not result. That's my main message.
Say that last bit again.
The last bit is, don't be result oriented, be process oriented. It's all about the process. It's about the progress. It's about evolution. It's not about you're going to master this parenting game one day and be done with it. New challenges are going to rise. We're constantly evolving and changing as human beings. Our children change, and some things are going to get easy, some things are going to get hard, but don't feel like you have to accomplish some kind of result in your parenting. Enjoy the process. Enjoy each step, the journey. It's not about where we're going. We're just enjoying the ride.
Yeah. I agree. And
thank you for being so vulnerable. I truly appreciate that too. It almost brought tears to me. I really worked hard to suppress my emotions, because I can cry right along with you too.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for this time with you today, Anna, and I'm so grateful for you, the parents and the moms and the dads out there that are watching and absorbing this information, and hopefully just forgiving yourself and being super gentle with yourself and with your children as well. Thank you again for participating, Anna, and thank you all for watching. I will see you all tomorrow with another video.
Thank you.
Bye.